In today's global defense landscape, is a fleet of 300 transport aircraft a surprising figure, or the result of careful calculation? Many people's first reaction upon seeing this number is that it seems too large. After all, if you take a close look around the world, there are indeed very few nations capable of fielding a strategic transport fleet in the triple-digit range. The U.S. Air Force currently has 222 C-17s and 52 C-5Ms, with a combined total of 274 large transport aircraft forming the backbone of its global deployment. As for the Russian aerospace forces, they have roughly 110 Il-76s of various models and variants. In 2025 alone, only 7 new Il-76 and D-90s were delivered, a production rate that cannot even meet their own announced plan to form a new transport regiment. Looking at other regions, the number of forces capable of fielding over 100 large transport aircraft is few and far between. Therefore, when the figure of 300 is mentioned, many instinctively feel that the ambition is too grand. However, if we shift our perspective away from a simple comparison of numbers and examine it within the context of specific strategic deployment models, 300 is no longer a fanciful notion, but a pragmatic consideration with its own internal logic. To understand this logic, we must first understand how other nations utilize their transport aircraft. Militaries with global deployment capabilities hold a trump card, a network of overseas bases spanning the globe. Supplies can be pre-positioned at key nodes, and transport missions are broken down into a multi-leg relay, from the home base to the hub base, and from the hub base to the front lines, effectively distributing the strain across each segment. Supported by hundreds of military bases worldwide, the U.S. Air Force's C-17s can fly from the home base to a European base, refuel and rest there, and then continue on to Africa or the Middle East. The situation is quite different on the other side. With limited overseas support points, many missions must take the most direct route, departing from a home-based airport, crossing thousands of kilometers to reach the destination, and then flying back home after completing the mission. Whether delivering supplies to distant seas, rotating personnel for international peacekeeping missions, or evacuating citizens overseas in emergencies, aircraft must carry out these point-to-point direct flights. This long-distance, high-frequency transport model places greater demands on fleet size, since each aircraft is tied up for an extended period on a single mission, with round trips potentially taking several days. An insufficient fleet cannot maintain a reliable deployment rhythm across multiple directions, let alone respond swiftly to emergencies. People often view transport aircraft merely as tools for moving things, but their value extends far beyond that. In recent years, new variants derived from large transport aircraft platforms have frequently made their debut, sending a very critical signal. Airborne refueling aircraft are the most typical and important example among them. The U.S. Air Force's global operational capabilities are inextricably linked to its massive fleet of refueling aircraft, as aerial refueling directly determines the operational range of fighter jets and bombers. Previously, missions over distant seas were often constrained by fuel capacity, with clear limits on how far they could fly and how long they could remain airborne. Currently, the Y-20 series of refueling aircraft, modified from the Y-20 platform, has entered service in large numbers. Based on fuselage numbers, the total deliveries of the Y-20 series have reached approximately 138 aircraft, including 36 confirmed Y-20 models by the end of 2025, as well as the next generation Y-20B. Some foreign media analyses suggest that there may be as many as 50 Y-20 tankers currently in the production pipeline. This means that with sufficient aerial refueling support, fighter formations will be able to fly farther and remain airborne longer. A single aerial refueling can extend the J-20's combat radius by 300 to 400 kilometers. For the H-6, a single refueling can directly increase its range by 30 to 40%. This will bring about a qualitative change in the strike range and situational awareness capabilities of the entire Air Force. This is not merely the addition of a new aircraft type, but a fundamental restructuring of how air power is deployed. In terms of the aircraft's development, the large transport aircraft has just passed a critical milestone in its growth phase. Early models were limited by their power systems, preventing them from fully realizing their performance potential. With the gradual maturation of domestically produced high-bypass turbofan engines, these issues have been substantially resolved. The Russian-made D-30KP2 engines previously used were only marginally adequate in terms of thrust, fuel efficiency, and maintenance lifespan. Following the bulk replacement with the WS-20 engine, individual thrust has increased to 16 tons, the bypass ratio has reached 8.0, fuel consumption has been reduced by 30%, and the overhaul life exceeds 3,000 hours. With this engine, the new model's performance has returned to design specifications. Maximum payload capacity has increased from 55 tons to 66 tons, and with a full cargo load of 40 tons, the range reaches 7,800 kilometers. It can even take off and land fully loaded at high-altitude airports at 4,500 meters. This places extremely high demands on engine thrust margin, and the fact that it meets these requirements demonstrates that the performance redundancy is sufficiently robust. Furthermore, optimized design for operations at field airfields has not been overlooked, allowing transport destinations to be shifted from well-equipped fixed airports to rudimentary dirt or snow runways closer to the mission area. In reality, mission demands continue to grow as international responsibilities expand and overseas economic activities extend. Reliance on long-range transport capabilities increases year by year, from the regular rotation and resupply of peacekeeping forces in Africa, to routine transport and emergency response in distant maritime regions, to humanitarian emergency relief for sudden natural disasters. All require a sufficiently robust and rapid strategic transport network to support them. These missions are routine, high intensity, and occur simultaneously across multiple locations. Winter blizzards require the delivery of fuel and food to remote areas. Summer floods demand the deployment of rescue equipment and medical teams, and on top of that, there are the routine resupply of anti-piracy escort fleets and the periodic rotation of personnel at overseas bases. All these demands are constant, not occasional. Therefore, it is necessary to establish a fleet of large transport aircraft commensurate with the scale of these missions. If the fleet is insufficient, the military will be forced to rob Peter to pay Paul, prioritizing one area at the expense of another. A comparison with the United States and Russia further clarifies the significance of the 300 aircraft figure. Although the US possesses 274 large transport aircraft, the C-17 production line was shut down as early as 2015, and the remaining aircraft are being phased out one by one. While the new Strategic Transport Aircraft program is not scheduled to enter production until after 2038, in Russia, production capacity is increasing very slowly. An annual replenishment rate in the single digits means a large-scale fleet replacement is not feasible in the short term. Meanwhile, the ramp-up of production for the new generation of heavy transport aircraft is steady, with an annual output currently of about 10 to 20 aircraft. Furthermore, as issues with the pulsed production line and the WS-20 engine are finally resolved, this pace will only accelerate in the coming years. Some analysts believe that if the current pace continues, the total number of large transport aircraft could surpass that of the United States in as little as 5 years or as long as 10. From this perspective, the figure of 300 is not only a number based on actual demand, but also a trend that is already objectively evident. Therefore, when discussing the scale and production volume of large transport aircraft, one must not view the numbers in isolation but rather examine the strategic logic behind them. It reflects the differences in strategic deployment methods under varying geopolitical conditions, the rigid demand within the entire air power operational system for derivative models of specialized platforms, and the supply-demand relationship between the maturity of equipment technology and the ever-increasing practical mission requirements. When re-examined against this multidimensional backdrop, the figure of 300 aircraft is no longer a shocking vision, but rather a comprehensive consideration grounded in current realities and oriented toward future development.